Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Myself, Dr. Jayashree Janagam, Assistant Professor, Department of the Psychiatry. NHRIMH today presenting a webinar on clinical examination of central nervous system. So I request everyone to stay connected. If it is disconnecting in between, it will start again with the same link. So now I request Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, our Associate Professor in the Department of Psychiatry, to deliver the welcome speech. Yeah. Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, now over to you. Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, madam, over to you. Can you hear me? You can unmute yourself and you can talk. Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, you can unmute yourself and you can start.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone, I welcome you all to the webinar conducted by NHRIMH on behalf of our in charge. It's my pleasure to introduce our principal, Dr. Siddharthan, who is an eminent speaker and he is a professor in the Department of the Medicine for the past 14 years. And he's having 12 years of teaching experience in Vinayaka Mission, and 2 years is working as a principal and professor Department of Medicine. Sir, I welcome you, and we are very eager to hear you on the topic clinical examination of central nervous system. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari. And today I'm remembering few words given by William Arthur, where he says, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, but only the great teacher inspires everyone. So let me request our great academician, teacher, Dr. Siddharthan sir, our principal, Professor, Department of Practice of Medicine. I welcome you, sir, and we'll start with the session, sir. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I can start. Hello, audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody here. All our peoples gathered here. It is my great pleasure to deliver you a maximum. I'll try my level best to give a wonderful presentation in this topic. My topic is on clinical examination of central nervous system. Slide is visible, Jayashree?
Yeah, yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay. So coming on to the clinical examination of central nervous system, nervous system involves brain and spinal cord. Central nervous system, brain and spinal cord along with the peripheral nerves. So here central nervous system consists of mainly of brain and spinal cord mainly. So this is the structure of brain. So I'll be giving you a brief introduction of the brain here. So this is structure of brain, which is having mainly of 4 parts: frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal. So on your right side, what you are seeing is known as your frontal lobe. On extreme left is your occipital lobe. Superiorly, what you are seeing is your parietal lobe, and inferiorly, what you are seeing is known as your temporal lobe. So this is the main arrangement of the central nervous system here. So coming on to the frontal area, we are having frontal prefrontal cortex and somatic area, then broadcast area. So these are the main 3 things what we are going to see in case of your frontal lobe. This frontal lobe consists of mainly one function is that is known as your premotor cortex, which is associated with your motor activity. Motor activity is nothing but your voluntary movement is going to be controlled by body, that is otherwise known as your motor activity. Next, coming on to here is prefrontal cortex. Again, it is going to be concerned with that of your memory, intelligence, everything. Third main function is concerned with that of your first cranial nerve, that is olfactory nerve, going to be of starting from your frontal lobe. These are the three main divisions or functions of the frontal lobe, what we want to think for. Next, coming on to the parietal lobe, which is going to be an extreme top here, that consists of your sensory part, where sensation consists of all the sensation carried from the body is going to be controlled by that area. Again, I want to tell you two things. One is going to be afferent pathway, one is going to be a efferent pathway. Afferent is that what we are going to start from the lower towards brain. That is known as your afferent, concerned with your sensory part. Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Slide is not moving. Slides are not moving.
Sir, that's
Slides
what
are not moving.
Sir. Thank you, sir. No, I'm explaining the same slide only, sir. That is the thing. Afferent is nothing but what from the brain to spinal cord. Descending is that from brain towards down. Next, coming on to here. So, general clinical features of the central nervous system. So, these are the important features of central nervous system. One is cognitive symptom. Second, loss of awareness. Third, alteration of perception. 4, pain and headache. 6, giddiness, vertigo. Next is loss of sense and smell. Then positive visual symptoms. Then difficulty in speech and swallowing, weakness, cramp and fasciculation, tremor, dystonia, alteration or loss of sensation, deafness, tinnitus, impairment of control of bladder, bowel and limb and sexual function. So coming on to one by one, I'll give you introduction. So cognitive symptom is nothing but memory, understanding. So any abnormality in the memory, understanding will be going on to clinical features of abnormality in the central nervous system. So again, I told you this is not concerned with it of your frontal lobe. Next, here also loss of awareness and consciousness is also going to be a concern with it of your frontal lobe. Next is alteration of the perception, that is known as déjà vu. Is that undue familiarity, is that patient will feel that they will be having something already seen. This is seen in case of schizophrenia and certain.
Sir, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. The slides are not moving, sir.
Slide is moving here.
Yeah, no, sir, but we can't see.
For me, it is moving. It is moving here.
No, sir, just check it out once again. It's not changing, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Now we can see, sir. Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
It is visible now.
Yeah, visible, sir. Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Well, 1 minute. I can change here. And now I am going to change.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now coming on to the clinical features here. So cognitive symptom or memory impairment is that. So any impairment in memory, that is what I told previously, is concerned with it of our frontal lobe, mainly concerned with it of memory understanding. Next, loss of awareness and consciousness. Loss of awareness and consciousness also is going to go for your frontal lobe. Next, alteration of perception, as I told you previously, there is some psychiatric disturbances like schizophrenia. Next symptom is pain and headache. So coming on to the pain and headache. So pain is one sensation. Headache is nothing but any pain in the head is known as headache. So pain in the head is concerned with the top. Any abnormality in the brain, scalp, skull, everywhere in the head. So we want to concentrate and we must not differentiate etiology of others. So any pain in the head must want to differentiate it from the refractory errors. Another thing, ear problem. Another thing, any nasal problem or sinusitis. So these are the things where you will have pain, headache, on in case of any teeth abnormality. So concern with the pain in the head, one is going to be a neurological, non-neurological, we can able to think of. So neurological symptoms are, one is known as brain pathology or meninges. Second is that any abnormality in the middle ear or ear infection, tooth extraction, sinusitis, and refractory errors. I told you already. Next symptomatology comes your giddiness, vertigo. So giddiness, vertigo is next symptom where we want to concentrate for. So any abnormality in the reduced blood supply to the brain, it can able to cause giddiness or vertigo. Or second thing is that ear problem or middle ear or external ear, any problem is that also can able to cause. Third is that important nerve that is known as your eighth cranial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, any abnormality is that also can cause you vertigo or giddiness. Next, some conditions like hypoglycemia also can go with features of giddiness in some patients. So we want to take caution in differentiating them, and we want to confirm that may be due to abnormality of your CNS or what. Next symptom is that loss of sense or smell, taste, vision. So again, smell, taste, vision is going to be again main part. So smell is concerned with it of your olfactory nerve. Taste is going to be combined with it of your facial and glossopharyngeal multi-cranial nerve involvement. Vision is going to be of your optic nerve abnormality. So we want to check for any loss or reduced sense of smell, taste, vision in patient coming to you. Next, coming on to the positive visual symptoms like migraine aura. So aura is nothing but pre-monitoring symptom of any particular disease. Here I am giving you migraine. So pre-monitoring symptom of migraine, we are telling that it is going to be a migrainous aura. Same like that, the same aura will be there in our epilepsy also. So that we must want to give for. Next, double vision. Double vision, I told you, vision is concerned with the of eye. So this eye problem, double vision, polyopia, phalaenopsia, oscillopsia. Oscillopsia is nothing but movement. Polyopsia means, poly means multiple, double means double. So this everything is going to be concerned with of your optic nerve abnormality. So this is the nutshell of clinical features of your central nervous system. Next, coming on to here, another set of symptoms I want to explain you is nothing but difficulty in speech and swallowing, weakness, cramp, fasciculation, tremor, dystonia, altered loss of sensation, deafness, tinnitus, impairment of control. Coming on to the difficulty in speech and swallowing. So speech center, as I told you here, this is here. This is the brain picture where you are having picture of broadcast area in your frontal lobe. Slide is changing, Jayashree. Jayashree? Hello?
Changing, sir.
Okay. So here, broadcast area is there in the frontal area. Next, vernix area is here. Back to that. So the two things are going to be a dotted line, which is responsible for your speech. So broadcast area is going to be responsible for production of speech. And I think vernix area is going to be responsible for understanding of speech. This two area, any abnormality is there, we can able to think of patient may have central abnormality. So we are going to divide into two reasons etiology for speech abnormality. One, it may be central etiology. Next, it can be peripheral etiology. Central etiology, I told any problem in the center, like broadcast area, vernix area, we can able to think of central causes. Then peripheral causes consist of the structures involved for speaking. So structures involved for speaking is nothing but your pharyngeal muscles, another thing, vocal cord. So any problem in your pharyngeal muscles or vocal cord will be causing difficulty in articulation. It can able to cause abnormality in the speech also. So pharyngeal muscle abnormality will be concerned with it of your 10th and 9th nerve. That is nothing but your glossopharyngeal nerve and vagus nerve. Another thing, vocal cord abnormality, anything is there, that is also concerned with it of one nerve is known as recurrent laryngeal nerve. So recurrent laryngeal nerve, any problem is that will be causing of abnormality in your vocal cord. That is going to cause your problem. Next, any abnormality in your 9th and 10th nerve will be, which is going to supply your pharyngeal muscles When that is going to be a problem, that is going to cause abnormality in the speech. Next, nerves supplying to your tongue also will be involved in case of speech. So any abnormality in the tongue supplying nerve, that is known as a hypoglossal nerve. When there is also problem is that also can able to alter speech. Same like that, swallowing and deglutition is going to be concerned with that of your esophagus and pharynx. So there any abnormality in the parasympathetic sympathetic nerves which is going to be supplying your esophagus, which can cause alteration in the swallowing and speech. So this is the etiology we can able to link. When patient is going to tell to you any symptom, this symptom can be related with that of your pathology that inside. So coming on to the general weakness, so weakness is going to be a concern with the top. So in body, we are going to divide into two. One is known as sensory part, one is known as motor part, third is known as special sensory part. So motor part is going to be done by voluntary movement. Sensory part is going to be done by pain, touch, temperature. Special sensory is nothing but taste, vision, hearing and touch. Everything will be there as special senses. So coming on to the weakness here, weakness is mostly concerned with of your motor part, that is weakness. So one tract that is known as premoral tract or corticospinal tract, when this is going to be responsible, this can cause your weakness or full paralysis. So we are terming as paralysis or paralysis as one terminology for weakness of the body. Next, cramp and fasciculation is going to be a one abnormality where involuntary, these are cramp, fasciculation, tremor, dystonia, myoclonus. These are the involuntary movements which we can able to identify, that I'll be discussing on later there. Now coming on to the altered loss of sensation. So I told you sensation is nothing but pain, touch, temperature. So any alteration in the sensation we can able to think of in two terminology. One is known as anesthesia. Second is we are telling that it is of numbness. So numbness is that partial reduction of the sense. Anesthesia, when you are going to think that it is going to be a complete loss of sensation. So mainly I want to focus on all in the complete loss of sensation is that one condition known as leprosy, where we'll be having complete anesthesia. So numbness we can able to have with peripheral neuropathies. In peripheral neuropathies, we are having mainly of diabetes, where we'll be having peripheral neuropathy like straw and gloves numbness, where we are putting gloves and where we are putting socks, we'll be having the numbness where we can able to identify the symptom. So this is about the altered or loss of sensation. Coming on to the deafness and tinnitus. Deafness is that, as you know, it is going to be of reduced hearing. Tinnitus is that roaring sound in the ear. So that can be due to two reasons. One, as such pathology in your ear. Here we are going to divide into three. One is going to be external ear, middle ear, internal ear. So any problem in your structure, we can able to think of deafness or abnormality. Another thing, anything concerned with it of your eighth nerve involvement. So eighth nerve involvement, I want to stress you is that we are having two symptoms. One is the hearing part, one is known as balance. So any problem in the eighth nerve can cause abnormality in the hearing in some patients, or we are having vestibular part and cochlear part. When vestibular part is that, it is going to concern with of your hearing. Another thing, cochlear part is not concerned with of your balance. So any abnormality will be reflected over the symptoms there. Next, coming on to the impairment of control of bladder, bowel, limbs and sexual function. So here mainly concerned with of your autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic. So bladder and bowel. So think of this picture. So this picture is going to be important. So here you see, this give you one vague idea that how bladder is going to be controlled. So here we are seeing brain, from brain down it is going to through the spinal cord. Next, upper motor neuron, lower motor neuron. Upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron, I want to give you one idea is that, so upper motor neuron is nothing but, so neurons traveling from your nucleus till your spinal cord, we are telling that that is known as upper motor neuron. From the spinal cord to the target tissues, we are thinking that it is known as lower motor neuron. So when you are going to see here, upper motor neuron is starting from your brain, going down, and it ends into your spinal cord. From here, it starts and go to the bladder. So again, they are given as one center in the frontal lobe, one center in the pontine, third in the sacrum. So these are the important point where this micturition is going to be controlled with. So any abnormality in this area can cause abnormality in the micturition. So everything is normal. We are telling that that is known as normal. So they are telling that, see, cerebral lesions they are giving you here, stroke, then multiple sclerosis and brain injury, Parkinson's and cerebral palsy. These are the important reason where we will be having abnormality in the bladder micturition. Next, coming on to the spinal cord etiology, we are telling that trauma, spina bifida, again it is multiple sclerosis. Next, coming on to the here, lastly, sacral micturition center, peripheral nerve damage. I told you already, diabetes mellitus. In case of diabetic patient, we can be able to have alteration in your micturition due to defect in the nerve damage. So this is the symptomatology of micturition. Next, coming on to here, this is of bladder rectal control. Rectal control is nothing but defecation. This is urination. This is bowel movement abnormality. Again, it starts from the hypothalamus, upper motor neuron, lower motor neuron, reflex defecation center, and this is the complete picture. So any abnormality in the sacral plexus also can able to cause abnormality in the defecation. So mainly here cerebral causes, again they are telling stroke, multiple sclerosis, brain injury, Parkinson's, cerebral palsy. Coming on down, any abnormality in the spinal cord. Here they are giving you mainly in the abnormality in the sacral plexus, which causes abnormality in the defecation or controlling of defecation. So this is the important symptoms. Again here, déjà vu, as I told you. So that is one of the symptoms where patient will be having with familiarity of what patient not seen anywhere. So when this symptom is there as déjà vu, patient will be feeling that everything is going to be already seen, which is going to be seen in case of your temporal lobe epilepsy. Next, reduce consciousness or awareness. So coming on to the reduced consciousness or awareness, consciousness and awareness is nothing but surrounding must want to aware, consciousness what you are doing you must want to understand. So we are having three main etiology. One is neurocardiogenic, second is syncope, third is epilepsy. So coming on to the neurocardiogenic, as name implies, any nerve involvement due to cardiac causes can cause. That is nothing but nerve supply of the heart. When this is going to be of abnormal, this is going to affect your cardiac function. What is your cardiac function? Main cardiac function is two. One is systole, one diastole. When this is going to be abnormal, this will cause reduced blood supply to your brain, and this can cause abnormality in your consciousness. That's what down terminology is syncope. Syncope is nothing but reduced blood supply to the brain, which causes unconscious due to reduced blood supply. So this is concerned with of your reduced consciousness or awareness. Etiology may be cardiogenic also. So for brain, circle of will is going to be supplied by from the heart. From heart, blood vessel must want to go there. So it must want to pass through your vertebral column of cervical region, and it must want to reach above your brain. So any abnormality in the cervical region, like cervical spondylosis or cervical degeneration or cervical disc prolapse, also can cause reduced blood supply. That also can cause alteration in the consciousness of any individual. So we want to rule out what may be the etiology for reduced consciousness, or some pathology in the brain also can cause reduced consciousness. Like one terminology I want to introduce you here is nothing but space occupying lesion. So space occupying lesion is going to be one of the factor responsible for reduced consciousness also. that we are putting as one terminology like compression syndrome. Compression syndrome is nothing but due to compression, any symptom is going to be of getting outwardly reflected, that we are going to tell as compression syndrome. It can be of any etiology, any etiology. So anything is going to be compressing, even is going to be causing of symptom, we are going to tell here. So what can the thing can compress? One, any effusions when it's going to be of there present from, there are three main cavities are there. One between your meninges and skull, second subarachnoid, third subdural. Next one main cavity is there, that is nothing but your spinal column inside where ventricles and spinal column is there. So anything is going to be getting occupied in that area, we can tell that is known as your space occupying lesion. Next etiology, next space occupying lesion like cerebral abscess or cerebral hemorrhage or cerebral cyst. So anything occupying your brain parenchyma also going to be considered as your space occupying lesion. So headache is going to be directly related with our one terminology is known as space occupying lesion here. That's what I want to mean here. So as I told you, headache is nothing but pain in the head. So neurological causes we can see. Neurological causes means, so outside meninges is there, inside your brain parenchyma is there. So anything is disturbing or compressing your meninges or brain parenchyma can cause headache. So example I given you down is nothing but aneurysm, subarachnoid, usually subarachnoid aneurysm. So subarachnoidal aneurysm, anything is that. So any part, when aneurysm is nothing but abnormal dilatation of your arterial blood vessel wall. So this will cause abnormalities, stretching, irritation, it can cause headache. Next, as I told you, any effusions like hemorrhage, cyst or abscess when is going to be of then accumulating, this can also cause headache there. Next, meningitis. So as covering of the meninges, anything is going to cause irritation. This is can be of two etiologies. One is known as infection or due to trauma, meningitis can come. This can also cause headache. Next, as I told you, brain tumor is coming under one of the etiology of your space occupying lesion. Any tumor, it can able to compress your brain parenchyma, that also can cause headache. All these are the neurological causes. Again, as I told you, ear, eye and teeth are there. Adjacent to that, any problem and sinuses. This any abnormality is that can cause abnormality in your head, can cause headache. This is known as your referred headache. Next, coming on to the vertigo. Vertigo, I told you as usual, as previously, vertigo can be of one syncope. Syncope means what I told you, reduced blood supply to the brain, can cause abnormality to the supply of brain. So that can cause sometimes vertigo, that is known as your syncope or reduced consciousness. Next, disorders of brain, the disorders of brain or spinal cord, disorders of eighth nerve, where it consists of two parts. One is going to be vestibular part, one is known as cochlear part. It can able to also cause vertigo there. Next one terminology I want to tell you is nothing but vertebrobasilar insufficiency, as I told you previously. So any problem from the heart which cannot able to supply the demand of the brain, which can also cause vertigo, that is known as another one terminology or etiology for symptoms. So vertebrobasilar insufficiency, as term implies us, that indicates that vertebral artery, basilar artery, which cannot able to supply from the cardiac part towards your brain is known as one terminology, vertebrobasilar insufficiency. So in this condition also we can able to have vertigo. So important part for important etiology for vertebrobasilar insufficiency is there. One is one is any problem in the heart, as previously I told you. Second, any cervical abnormality, as I told you previously. These two things can cause abnormality to the reduced blood supply to the brain, which can cause irreversible damage to the brain, which can cause symptom of vertigo and headache both combinedly also. Next, coming on to one terminology like oscillopia. Oscillopia, oscillation means movement. So oscillopia is nothing but sensation of something is surrounding, environment is surrounding by. So as I told you, this is nothing but it's going to be done by concerned with it of ear. Ear is concerned with it of your vestibulocochlear nerve. So any problem in the ear can cause oscillopia, book tells. So this is the etiology or this is the pathophysiology we can able to relate for oscillopia. So they are giving one terminology like superior semicircular canal disease syndrome. So this syndrome is nothing but, so semicircular canal is one, semicircular canal is going to be a one part of cochlea where, so any pathology in this can affect your eye also, and it can able to cause involuntary movement, it can able to cause pathology outside. Next, last symptom is nothing but phalanopsia. Phalanopsia is going to be again related to your eye, where it can able to cause persistent visual image after stimulus is going to be removed. When you are going to see something like books or laptop or anything, even we are removing that thing also, that image is going to be of that in front of you. So patient will be resembling that, they will be having that sensation in front of them. So example of these condition may be, one is dysfunction of virtual memory, any visual memory, any abnormalities that they'll be having. Another thing, metabolic disorders like hyperglycemia and carotene deficiency, ion channel deficiency. So carotene is going to be a one material which is going to be helpful for your fatty acid synthesis. So any deficiency is in carotene deficiency also. Next, ion channel disturbance also, we can able to have this symptom. So these are the main symptom what I want to highlight for you. When this symptom is there, we want to make so seriously and we want to differentiate from other disorder, and we want to focus on this patient is having central nervous system or what, because I have given you more explanation here. We want to rule each and everything, and we want to confirm this patient is confirmed to central nervous disorder or not. We want to confirm first, then only we must want to go for central nervous system examination or what. So this is the importance of clinical features till now. Next, this is a thing I want to tell you. Now till now I completed your examination of clinical features. Now I am moving on to the examination part. So what and all patient is telling is nothing but your clinical features. Then after that, what you are going to examine is nothing but, along with that you want to confirm with. So in case of examination, usually we'll be having general examination, inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation in case of all systems. Along with that, we want to examine something from the nervous system. So these are the important tools where to identify your central nervous system abnormality. So one is that reflex hammer or knee hammer is going to be a one thing. Second is tunic fork. Third, ophthalmoscope. Four is Nell's chart. Fifth is quadrant swabs. Sixth is tongue plates. Next is known as safety pin. So this is reflex hammer and tunic fork here. So reflex hammer is going to be of examined for deep tendon reflexes. So any tendon is, so tendon reflex I'll be speaking you later on. So we are going to divide this tendon reflex into three. One is known as normal reflex. Second is going to be of hypo. Third is known as hyper, exaggerated. Or we can tell that it is reduced or increased depending upon the pathologies inside. I will tell you later on. Next, coming on to the tunic fork also here. So tunic fork is that nothing but to identify the one hearing, second vibration sense inside in the all the bones. So vibration sense we can able to keep your tunic fork and you can vibrate, and we can able to put or keep over your bony prominence, and you can able to see any abnormality, patient able to feel that vibration or what. So that will be causing of that will be indicating sub abnormality in the body. Next, I told you there is known as your reflex hammer, which will be giving of something for tendon reflexes. here next. So again, two instruments are there. One instrument is your left side is known as your ophthalmoscope, right is known as your torchlight. So ophthalmoscope and torchlight is going to be concerned with the of your eyes. So eyes we want to see for one acuity, second any